What makes the achievement of emotional sobriety so difficult is the habits we have, the patterns we have in our behavior, the habitual ways that we've come to think about things. We have to really become aware of those things in order to challenge them, because the consciousness that has created a lot of the problems in our life cannot solve it, cannot change things. So what happens is the first step is waking up. Now, we've explored how the first 7 steps are really creating, they're deconstructing the way that we had been thinking, or the way we hear it in the rooms is we're letting go of our old ideas. And the first, 7 steps, we're deconstructing this self that we've developed, this engineered self, this false self. And what we're doing is now laying the foundation for a new way of life. A life, as Bill calls it, that works under any condition whatsoever. It is not a life based on contingency, but a life based on principles, on this emotional autonomy, on being differentiated. So that's where this energy is going. And the first 7 steps really get us to the point of being ready to adopt this new way of being, this new way of functioning in our life. And so what's happened to us by the time we get to step number 7 is we've developed a deeper sense of humility than we've ever had in our life. And I'll just remind everybody about the definition that we adopted of humility, which was from the American Psychological Association's Dictionary on Psychological Terms. And they talked about 3 components to humility. The first is there's a low focus on self. Well, we've heard that, right? Selfishness, self-will run riot. That's the root of our problems, right? We've heard that. So there's a low focus on self. The second component to humility is that there's an accurate, not an over or underestimation of our success and worth. So we don't need to blow ourselves up. We don't need to also put ourselves down. We don't need to understate who we are. We can just own who we are. The way that Nathaniel Branden said it, and I loved it at one point, he says, we no longer have to prove that we're good or that we're not bad. We just are who we are, right? So we just own who we are in that way. The third component of humility that is so apropos to this is that we acknowledge and we take responsibility for our limitations, for the mistakes we've made, for our gaps in knowledge. So we take responsibility for knowing what we don't know, if you will, for owning that there are blind spots that we have. And that's understandable. We don't know what we don't know, but we have to be open. And this is the other component that I think that humility really leads to. And that's a deep sense of curiosity about ourselves. Is we're curious. Hey, what's going on here? How come I'm reacting this way? What's up? Why did I get upset at that? What's going on? So we start to have this consciousness about ourselves and what we're doing, not out of a self-consciousness that's a negative thing and based on narcissism, but a self-consciousness that's based on our desire to grow and be what we can be. So that's what's happened up to step number 7. And in step 6 and 7 was this wonderful pivot. And Bill even says it, towards our best possible attitude towards life. And I've extended that to say it's our best possible attitude towards life. It's our best possible attitude towards ourselves, our best possible attitude towards our relationship with other people. So here we are. And like I said, all these steps, they build a charge in this. So the charge is we're going to develop our best possible attitude. Well, now what is that best possible attitude? He says, all right, we'll make a list of people you've harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. Okay, all right, well, what an order. I mean, that's a big thing. Another big piece of humble pie is we're asked to eat at that point in step 8. And we've explored that, and we also need to look at the harm we've done to ourselves. And we really looked at what would be an unusual suspect in that area, and that's self-hate and the self-hating process that we all have. And please, if you haven't listened to our discussion on step 8, you can go back and you can do that, because we have been archiving these discussions and they are all on a YouTube channel. Thankfully to Patrick Newman. Let's give a big shout out for Patrick. Thank you, Patrick, for being our archivist. We have an archivist. How do you say it? Is it archivist or archivist? I'm going to turn to Tom Potash, who's our resident.
You say it, archivist. Patrick Newman.
Archivist. Okay.
I thought it was Patrick Newman.
So that's what we've done, right? So we've made that pivot. We've now sat down, and we're seeing that in order to have the best possible attitude, it's about taking responsibility and becoming aware, increasing our awareness. Now, the increase of our self-awareness becomes an essential element. And one way of looking at all the work we've done up to this particular point in time is by expanding our awareness, our self-awareness of what's going on with us, what's been happening, how have we impacted those people we love and care about? How has my emotional dependence showed up in my life? What damage has it done? What has been damage it's done to my sense of self, my self-concept? Because when I have a concept that's based on other validated self-esteem, it means I've sold myself out, that I don't think I can support myself. I need you to do it for me. So there's a terribly, terribly dismissive and discounting message that we've all bought into when we've really adopted this approach to life based on emotional dependence. And so we take responsibility for this in step number 8. And now taking responsibility can't just be an intellectual exercise and becoming aware of it. We need to integrate our knowledge into behavior. That is the wonderful thing that we see in this program. It's that it's both a psychodynamic approach to life as well as a behavioral approach, and it's integrating the both. It's becoming aware of what we're doing and how we do it, and then it's doing things differently. There must be action that follows insight, or else it just becomes an intellectual exercise. And that's what we're seeing in steps 8 and 9, that we take this information, we plug it into our life, we integrate it, we try it on, we live it. And as we live it, we continue to grow ourselves more and more. So that's the formula. 8 and 9 was that formula that we're learning, is that we take time to become aware of ourselves and what's going on. And then we use this information, not theoretically, but we use it to live a different life, to live a better life. Now, what happens is when we go to step 10, which is continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admitted it, we're seeing that what we're doing now is we're taking steps 8 and 9 and we're putting them together. Step 10 is an integrative step. We're integrating what we learned in steps 8 and 9, and we're now making it a part of our life right now, today. So here's the third piece of this. We take awareness of what we're doing, how we're doing it, we turn it into new behavior and go to someone, and that's based on the past, right? Steps 8 and 9, that's the past. We're cleaning up the past. We're resolving unfinished business. But now it can't just be an exercise in the past, because if we don't now integrate that into our current behavior, we're going to do what? We're going to leave more wreckage behind us. So now we're taking what we've learned about ourselves and we're bringing it into our current awareness. I love what Tom Rutledge said with this. I will never forget when I got a little button from him at one point that said, we go back in the past to learn as much as we can from it, and then we get the hell out of there. What he didn't include on his button, we get the hell out of here and we get grounded in right now, and we use all that we've learned from the past to live a different experience right now, right here, right now. That's where recovery shows up, in what you're doing today. You do not have to ask someone if they're in recovery or not. You can just watch their behavior. And if they are living their recovery, you will see it in what they're doing, not what they're saying. Herb Kagan said that there was an old Catholic saint that used to say, everywhere I go, I preach the gospel. And sometimes I use words, right? I love that line. I love that line. Everywhere I go, I preach the gospel. Sometimes I use words, because it's not the words that communicate what's going on. It's who we are. It's how we live our life. And that's what step 10 is about. Now we're taking everything we've learned and we're plugging it in order to learn how to deal with ourselves when we get upset and disturbed. And what we do now is we're not blaming anybody else. We continue to take personal inventory. And when we were wrong, we promptly admitted it. We take care of it right now, right here, right now. Promptly admitted it right at this moment. Now, when do we know we're wrong? Well, Bill had a clue for that. If you read the 12 and 12 in step 10, he says, it's a spiritual axiom. Every time I am emotionally disturbed, there's something wrong with me, no matter the cause. Even if somebody else has certain behavior and stuff like that, their behavior is not the problem. It's what I expect. It's the rules I have. It's the expectations I have. It's the thought I have. So now we are eradicating. This is a radical movement to eradicate blame from our life and replace it with empowerment, with taking responsibility for ourselves and how we are living our life. This step is about freedom. Freedom from our nonsense, freedom from our games, freedom from the games we play with ourselves and others, freedom from our expectations. Is we are now unhooking these things so that we are not now in conflict with life, right? Like this, suppose we're now finding a way to get aligned with life, to deal with life as life is, to deal with what is. Virginia Satir said it beautifully. Life is what it is. It's how we cope with it that makes the difference. That's the issue here. And that's what we're finally learning how to do, is how to cope with this stuff. So you cope with this when you get upset, try to figure out what's going on with you, what's wrong with you. Virginia Satir also said a wonderfully beautiful thing. She says, whenever I have a problem, I draw a big circle and I put myself smack dab in the middle. And then I ask myself questions like, well, what part of the problem I'm experiencing is being created by my expectations, by my interpretation of what's going on? And she said something at the end of that whole paragraph that she was talking about. And she says, what part of my problem is being caused by my lack of faith to be able to grow and cope with what's going on? You see, if I have a lack of faith to be able to deal with what's going on, then if I make you wrong, I let myself off the hook about growing up. That's one of the big games we play. When I'm blaming other people, it's so I don't have to take a look at what work I need to do. So enough said about step 10 right now. Let me invite, and we'll have one more week on step 10 because this is so important. But let me now invite Roger and Tom into the room with me, and let's hear what they have to say about this wonderful step.
Hey.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Alan. Take it away, Tom, if you wish.
Okay. I just texted Brian Lutz and said, "Are we on step 10?" And so he said yes. So that's what we're doing. But here's, I think, I'll say one more thing about step 9, because I was thinking of step 9 when I came into this thing, but it takes me to step 10. It's like, if you've ever lived in a place long enough, like we've lived in this house, we live in now since 1992, and it's like we're getting ready for I think the third time to bring the dumpster up to the top of the hill and do the appropriate purge. It's like I work with eating disorder people a lot, and one of the things I talk about with people who have a history of purging, binging, purging, I say, well, purging is actually a symbolic act, and it's like there are things we need to purge, and a lot of times that's emotional. It's a lot of this work. A lot of step 9 is the appropriate purge, but I'm just because we're getting ready to do this again at our house. I'm thinking of the literal feelings of freedom that come with that when you get the dumpster up there, and we're talking about. And I have no idea how we accumulate this stuff. This is all metaphor and literally true. How we as human beings accumulate stuff. How we're just magnets for stuff, and we can and we're talking about beyond what all the boxes and things that go to Goodwill and all these other places. We're talking about stuff that we hold up to each other when we're going through closets and say, do you even know what this is? And go like, I think it was part of a wedding present, and it's like, really? It's like, what is that? But so, and the idea is you fill that dumpster up and you have these empty closets. And then not too many years later, you go into the closet and go, oh my God, how did it get so full again? And step 10 is about how to keep the closet clean. It's like, now that it's nice and clean, and and just like like anything else, like having a new car, I'll keep it really nice for a while, and so that's hopefully what we're doing here is with step 10, we're really focusing on developing a practice where we're going to keep our own conscious mind, our own day-to-day practice of responsibility. How to keep it clean. It is. I have long said step 10 is if it's a box of tools, if the 12 steps are a box of tools, which is the way I like to think about it. It's like, it's not, because when people say I worked the steps, I go like, well, that means like I used the hammer, it's like, I mean, that's fine, but we have to learn how to use these tools, and then we have to use them at the appropriate times. And I use that step 10 more than any other tool, I think, in a lot of ways, because I can fuck up so well. And I don't mean, I'm not saying that out of a mean way, because this is the place of I mean, here's one of the things I wrote down while you were talking. Humility is freedom from perfectionism, and freedom from perfectionism is how we heal self-hatred. And that's where you started, Alan, on step 8. And I like the idea of 8, 9, and 10 being this threesome here. And it's like, and so what we're doing now is we've done a lot of house cleaning up to this place. And at 10, we're making a commitment to taking that daily practice and saying, okay, I'm gonna do my very best to keep my closets clean. I'm going to, I also think about washing dishes, because I've used this in workshops many times. Is we all know the nature of washing dishes. If you wash dishes, if you have a lot of dishes to wash, and you wash the dishes, the moment you finish the last dish, somebody else brings something into the kitchen, right? Another dish. Now the strange thing, now I've researched this. The strange thing is this happens even if you live alone. We don't know why. We don't understand. It just does happen. It's universal. But there's always more, and it's like, and rather than, and what I've learned in my life is it's such a nice freedom to rather than, oh my God, there is another dish to do, or, oh my God, there I fucked up something else up. It's like, it's so cool just to know what this is and what to do with it. What do you do with the additional dish that shows up magically beside you? You wash it. What do I do? What do I do when I discover that I've done something that has been, that has hurt somebody, potentially harmed somebody, stepped on somebody's toe, broadside them. It's like then I own it and I step into it. And the coolest thing about this, where we are here, is this is where the results of our day-to-day practice of recovery is about, because humility is the thing that allows me to feel proud of myself. It's a very strange twist. I feel very proud and happy that I am no longer so caught up in my ego that I have to be seen as in a certain way by people. And I'm not saying I can't run into problems with that still, because I can, but it's like not a lot. It's like I really have. I can really listen to how other people see me, accept that. But sometimes it's hard to accept good stuff as well as the bad stuff. But it's like to actually listen and just accept how other people are receiving me, rather than me being addicted to having people see me in a certain way. And that's what this leaves me with. So that's my start on step 10.
Oh, thank you, Tom. That's
Thanks.
a great metaphor or analogy.
Yeah, for thinking we were on step 9, that's pretty good. Right?
But the closet, and emptying the closet, and then even more so, not accumulating, because that's how I experience it when I'm lost, or I'm uncentered, or I'm, offending people right and left. I experience it as inner clutter, inner emotional and energetic clutter. I get bogged down by it. And a couple of things, and you've all heard me say this many times before, but especially when Alan's on a roll and being real articulate like he is tonight, I just need to say this over and over again. Beware of a part of any of us that wants to turn these into shoulds, okay? Into a new list of shoulds, because it's so easy to do. It is for me all the time. I have to check myself about that. It's like that idea again of, hearing these ideas and thinking about them and chewing on them a while and seeing what fits for you as you, right? And at this time in your life, and what doesn't fit. So that's the first thing I just wanted to add a little reminder about, that these are very powerful ideas, but in my life, at least, they're all really messy in terms of the implementation of them, because it's not like, at least from my point of view, I'm not hearing one of the shoulds we can turn it into is, well, okay, if I'm really emotionally sober, I never get upset about anything. And it's like nothing could be further from the truth in my life and my experience. But the idea is I take those things that are upsetting me and I show that curiosity that Alan was talking about, right? Because that's what's pointing the way for me. If I have the curiosity and the interest and the time and the energy to look at it, that's what's pointing the way toward some additional healing that can happen for me, or some new capability that can happen for me. But I just don't want us to hear the message that we're never supposed to react negatively and intensely to something someone else has done or something we've done. But these are just very helpful tools about, okay, am I blaming myself or others or others in that process? And if so, can I recognize that and begin to let go of that? So I love the idea that as I own my part more, I empower myself more. And that's a very powerful idea to me.
Say that again, Roger. I love
as I own my part more, I empower myself more. And I'm not talking about denigrating myself or putting myself down or putting other people down. I'm just saying, as I look at my part more, show more curiosity about my part, that's what grows me. And again,
and heals self-hatred. That's what I'm seeing for the first time tonight. How this circles back on, and what you're talking about is the scary thing we have about looking at ourselves is we're afraid. We get so afraid of what we're going to find, but what it really does is the opposite. It helps us heal that self-hatred.
Yeah. And the other thing I've noticed over the years, especially more recent years, is taking this approach greatly reduces defensiveness and a felt need to close up and close off in the person that I'm connecting with and relating to. You know, focusing on my part tremendously reduces defensiveness in the other person and opens new possibilities for connection and communication. So that's like a side benefit, right? A lot of the time, because most of us, if we feel criticized, if we feel blamed, the first thing we do is tighten up, right? And close off. And then the last thought I had decades ago, I read a book called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by a trampolinist and gymnast named Dan Millman. And Dan had this mentor named Socrates in that book. It's been decades, but one of the things Socrates said to Dan that stood out for me is he said, the present moment is always the safest place to be. And I want to tie that into what Alan said about we're bringing this willingness to make amends and to look at our part in an ongoing way, not perfectly so ever, but in an ongoing way into our daily lives. And the meaning I give that is, even if the present moment is a real dangerous place for me, psychologically or emotionally, or even in the most extreme cases, physically, it's still the best place, safest place for me to have my attention. In fact, those are the situations where it's most helpful and beneficial for me to have my attention, is when I'm in a crisis in the present moment. And because my responses are going to be based on my perceptions, right? And I need to have my eyes and ears and my being open to what's going on right now between me and this other person, within myself. What's going on right now? So I just wanted to share that. And believe me, the present moment can be an incredibly uncomfortable place to be. Lord, we all know that, right? If we're hurting a lot, or we've just had a horrible loss, or, you know, we've just made a major screw up one way or another. I'm not saying the present moment, all this present moment awareness stuff is great if you're walking on the beach at sunset, you know, and it's a beautiful evening in Rosarita, Mexico, Gary. But not so great if you know, I'm living in a horrible environment and my relationships suck and my life feels like it's totally going down the tubes. But still, the present moment is the safest place to be. So I just wanted to finish with that thought, you guys.
Great. Both of you guys, wonderful. You really sweeten the pot, so to speak. You know, Roger, what you said reminded me of one thing, is that the freedom we're getting is the freedom from shoulds. Because when we get to the step, we're not doing the step because we should do it. So you continue to take personal inventory, you know, and when we're wrong, promptly admit it. We could put, if you want to, not that you should do it, but that we get to this point, we want to do that because it gives us freedom. It's the right thing to do because it's the right thing for us. It's not going to make something right with someone else. They may not be okay with what we've done. But if we own it and we take care of it, it's just what we learned in step number 9. I make amends to make amends and to get right with myself. Hopefully that means something to somebody else, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'm not trying to manipulate you. I'm trying to get right with myself here.
Right.
And it's such an important thing. So that freedom that we talk about, and that's what these steps are moving us towards a life based on I want to, not I should, or I have to, or I ought to, or all that other nonsense that we do that imprisons us in all of these rules.
I hear a lot of people criticize the 12 steps, that they're old-fashioned. I can understand that criticism. They were written back in 1935. Some people that are agnostic have difficulty with the word God used in the steps. For me, I look at the process that's involved. The forces that the 12 steps generate are so powerful that I think they're ageless. There's this interesting phenomena that happens when you work the steps. They create a charge and then a discharge. You know, the first step, we're powerless. Our life has become unmanageable. It creates this charge. You know, we're in big trouble and we don't know what to do. And then step 2 comes along and it says we have hope. That charge, that existential crisis that we have is resolved. What's happening here is parallel to life. We charge ourselves when we breathe in. When we exhale, we discharge. That's the rhythm of life. And the way I love to think about the 12 steps, it's helping us get connected to the rhythm of life so we can learn how to show up in a good way.